Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So, we're going to get into this. I just have to say, to piss everyone off, I have tea. And I mean actual tea. But it's because it's getting colder. Today was the last warm day, so let's just say I plan on Georgie returning tomorrow. I have a little plan for my outfit tomorrow to commemorate coldness returning. The Britishy cold is coming, so Britishy Georgie is resurfacing. So anyways, diet culture is horrible, but I'm surviving. I survive off of eggs. I am a snake in the snake year. I am living off of eggs. That's all we need to talk about to start. Let's get into it.
People that do not go to the gym or have like a healthy lifestyle are lazy. So far from beyond what I actually live.
I work 14-hour days and I still manage to go to the gym.
Oh, this is going to be hard for them. Sorry, let's just go.
Take a toll on my sleep sometimes, but I have to be willing to take accountability and say, I was lazy at this.
I know a lot of fat folks in my sphere like to reclaim the word fat instead of using words like morbid or obese. They prefer the word fat, and I prefer the word fat because it describes what I am, not a category that doctors are putting me in to describe how sick I am.
Welcome to Counterpoint. I'm your host, Ryan. On this side, we have gym goers, and on this side, we have supporters of body acceptance. Being fat or skinny is a choice.
I'd be stepping forward. I've literally chosen. I wouldn't say I'm skinny necessarily, but being fat is definitely a choice. I'll put it to you that way. I don't know if skinny as much. It depends. It depends on what you mean by that, but fat, 100,000%, yes, it is a choice. It is a choice to be fat or not. Absolutely.
We'll start by having people that agree come up now.
So I was a wrestler my whole life, constantly dieting my whole entire life. I mean, at this point now, I'm not...
Is the world
You're not what? Hold on.
Not wrestling anymore, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But I think it just comes down to the fact of it's just a calorie deficit. You want to consume less than what you're burning. Some people might have it easier. I'm not saying that, like some people might find it harder to lose weight, some people might find it easier.
In your experience with the wrestling thing.
I think it's pointless to talk about what's easier or harder. I think a lot of times it kind of evens out to a certain extent. For example, there's a huge difference between, like, people often bring up the difference between men and women. Men don't necessarily have it easier. It's typically faster. So you have to think like you're faster to fall apart, faster to lose, right? It's that kind of thing. And also the hormonal waves are a lot more challenging for men as they're coming down. There's more likely to be like rage spells, anxiety, depression. It's a lot more. A male body is not used to that level of hormonal fluctuation throughout a process where women's bodies can tolerate it much more, maybe because they are just constantly shifting all the time. So women are just used to that. But, typically it is slower for women to lose weight, also slower to fall apart. So you have to think of it that way. Women will typically, at least in my opinion, what I've observed, they'll typically have about 10 more years to get their weight under control before it hits their health in the same way it hits a man. But like I said, it can take a long time depending on how big you are as a woman, how tall you are, all these different things. So it kind of evens out. Slower to fall, slower to rise, right? As a man, if I decided to just eat whatever I wanted, I could gain weight really fast. I could put on weight incredibly quickly. I'll put it to you that way. If I just was like, I'm just going to go crazy with it, your appetite is a lot higher. And that is often not talked about as much. So it's just, it's pointless, you know? We don't like exist in all these different ways. It's just kind of stupid. You need to focus on yourself. What I will say as a blanketed statement that is true is it is easier under 25. It is. You usually don't have to be as strict. Things are not as ingrained in the brain. You're not used to being super morbidly obese. You don't really create that matrix in the brain as rigidly or as much. And so you're not as identified with your weight under 25. It's just easier on a psychological level, on a physical level, on every level when you are younger. That's true. That's absolutely true. But just because you're over 25, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means it will take longer. So that's all. But oftentimes you'll see like fitness influencers, and they tend to be a lot of young men that are going to have a much straighter line, and it's going to be faster and it's easier, I think primarily due to the age. It's easier. So that does have to be acknowledged. But that's basically what it is, okay? I think it's just a way to... I don't really know. I don't know why people focus on that so much. I feel like it's a way to shift blame, probably, or it's a way to try to... I don't know. It's almost like you encourage people. It's I don't know. It's just weird. It's something people do. I think there's like this American idea that it's polite to say. I don't know. I would question it. Like when you really think about it, why is that so commonly said? Honestly, it's kind of pointless.
Did you always lose weight when you went into the calorie deficit, or was it different each time?
100%. And it might have been, you know, a little too extreme to where it got to the point where it might have been a little unhealthy. But, you know, at the end of the day, I was losing weight, and it could have been because I had a better metabolism than some people. I could have had...
It's probably because you were younger, but typically it will happen just because you swell throughout the journey. One of the only diets that you will not swell is like keto, for example. You don't hold on to water. You don't really retain water when you do keto. That's why a lot of people experience that one as a straight line. But if you're not doing keto, if you're having carbs, you're going to have fluid fluctuation, drastic fluid fluctuation, especially if you're super morbidly obese or morbid. You're going to have a lot of shifts, and that will happen the whole way down. So even if you're just like mid, you could still swell a lot. Like a lot of people swell. Like if you're significantly overweight, you may swell, but it is water, and people don't understand water versus fat. Fat comes from calories. Water can come from anything. Water can come from hormones. Water can come from the amount of carbs you had that day. Water can come from, you know, anything. How much sodium with the carbs you had. How balanced your potassium is in regard to your sodium. If your sodium ratio is off of your potassium, you're going to swell drastically, for example. And things like estrogen cause swelling. Things like hypothyroidism will cause swelling, so if you are hypo in general. Obviously, if you're on your period as a woman, that's going to cause swelling. Like there's a part of the cycle where you swell. So there's a lot to consider, but you just need to be aware of your body. You just have to have an awareness of your own body. You don't have to figure everybody else's body out. You just need to listen to yours and be in touch with your own. And you'll know. You know, we need to bring back accountability and autonomy to this process. It is weird to me that we expect other people to figure it out for us in this issue, especially as adults. And I think that also really needs to be questioned and thrown in the trash, because we need to figure this out ourselves in a large part. You know, like obviously we can help each other in what ways we can, but I'm not going to be able to look at you and be like, okay, you're hypo, you're this, you're that. Like, you have to figure that out. Do you have a fatty liver? If you do, you probably have hypo symptoms. You know, like we can start there. Consider these things, okay? I can tell you what to consider. Most of what I say is for the most common fat person that's super morbidly obese, right? It's a very specific group that I'm usually talking to and about, because that's who a lot of these people are talking about most of the time. But when it comes to you individually as a person, you need to figure that stuff out. You need to observe your body, assess things, look at things, get tests done, figure it out. You know, you need to figure this stuff out. And then you can see, okay, well, I'm just swelling. You know, even something as simple as the season, I've told you guys, that was so, like, when I first started, people freaked out when I said that, because people have this idea that you should be in complete control of everything all the time. And that's not true. You're not all the time, but you work with it. And remember too, as you get towards a normal weight, those things happen less. It's less dramatic. It's less of all of this. You have less digestive issues, less hormone fluctuation, less hypothyroid symptoms, you just have less of all that stuff, and it becomes easier as you go up to a certain point. Until you're no longer overweight, then it gets harder again. So if you're going into a vanity level, then it is harder, which that's, I think, what he was talking about, which I don't know what he did when he was trying to lose. So, and he doesn't really say. So yeah, you have to take that for what you will too.
At an easier route, but at the same time, I mean, anybody can lose weight if you just put your mind to it.
Okay, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely a choice. Excluding all the rarities, thyroid conditions, things like that come up.
Thyroid condition is not an excuse to be super morbidly obese. You just need to do lifestyle changes that honestly probably you'd have to do to a certain extent, even not being super fat. Although you probably don't have to be as strict, because once again, like with a lot of stuff, being super morbidly obese, it complicates these conditions. It complicates hypothyroidism. It makes it worse due to the excess of estrogen that opposes your thyroid hormone. If you are hypothyroid, you need to regulate your weight. It is a part of treatment. It's a part of fixing the issue, managing the issue, etc. You need to get it together, because it can affect your medication. If you are super morbidly obese, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of thyroid medication depends on the liver to be functioning well. If your liver is fatty, it's ruining your medication. You need to get your weight together. There's just no excuse, and I'm not going to allow that to be said. No. If you're hypo, you need to get it together even more. So just no excuses.
In general, I definitely think that it's everyone's personal choice. Some people do have it harder. I myself, I have a really hard time gaining weight. Super easy for me to kind of drop weight, slim down. But if you're trying to pack on muscle, I feel like I'm eating nonstop, constantly.
Yeah, I mean, how much are you eating per day? Is it a lot?
I don't count my calories. I just have a rule if my stomach.
Okay, well, I don't know. Then we're getting into if you don't know a general amount that you're eating, then it's you're not really saying anything. That's how I see it. It's what does that even mean then?
It doesn't feel full, I have to eat.
Okay, fair. And how about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with the majority of what you've said, that you can change your diet and really control what your weight does. I've watched it happen with my own body over the course of my life. I shared my office with a nutritionist for a year and listened to him talk about things. And, it is very true. You can control that, and there are different genetic effects that can have
It's usually not genetic. Sorry, I have to call out everything. I'm a bitch. I don't know what to tell you. I'm a bitch. I'm just going to say it. It's not genetic. That's a myth. So there can be conditions. Again, the most common ones are going to be hypothyroidism and PCOS, which usually it's hypothyroidism via a fatty liver, which is extremely common in obesity and supermorbid obesity, especially to have a fatty liver. It's usually non-alcoholic if you want to get technical, but it's very, very common. So that's a condition, but Again, you're not genetically having fatty liver. That's not real. You're mismanaging your body. You're creating a fatty liver. Okay.
Play on things or different conditions
Which
that people.
it usually happens through BINGing, if we're gonna be real about it. And then alcoholism, obviously, that's the other way it will happen.
We might have, like you mentioned, but I think we have to also mention the way that our food system is structured right now. Our food system is designed.
Okay, well, we also need to acknowledge individual behavior a lot more than we currently are. A lot more, drastically more. The ratio of systemic issue versus individual behavior, we need to be massively talking about individual behavior much more than we do. We overemphasize systemic issues as a society in regard to obesity, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I've tried to explain it to you guys so many times. It doesn't matter if you have every single program ever, if you have the most perfect setup ever, you literally have fat activists saying, I don't want to lose weight. I don't want to. I don't want to lose who I am. I don't want to shrink away. I don't want to disappear. It doesn't matter what fucking programs you have if somebody is fearing disappearing when they think of losing. It's in here a lot of the time. It's in here. And again, as adults, it is our responsibility primarily to figure out. We need to do a little bit of investigating. We need to advocate for ourselves with doctors. We need to get things looked at. We need to figure things out. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, yes, we need to learn how the human body works, especially if we are obese, if we are supermorbidly obese. We need to be educated about hormone interactions and what happens in our bodies. We need to be educated about the fact that building muscle increases your ability to use insulin, for example. That should be known. So again, we have access to information. It exists. But I think we need to shift the attitude of it's everybody else's job to figure me out. It's your job to figure you out. Like, I think that needs to shift a lot. It's an issue I see constantly. And the people that actually get it done are the people that figure it out. I'm just going to be real with you guys about it. I'm just going to be real.
And to keep people unhealthy and to keep people fat and overweight and to try and make people sick and put them into the medical system where then they can fall into the insurance system. Like we have a system that is stacked against people.
You have to go with it though. I'm going to keep saying it. And you go with it every single day, all the time, constantly. Like, and it typically goes to, with a lot of people, I will say, not everybody, but for especially people who get to super morbid obesity, it is very often going to be a toxic ritualistic issue because it takes a lot to get there. I have always told you guys the truth. It takes a lot to get very big, a lot. There has to be a whole internal system to maintain it and to keep it going to get to that point. Because if you're a purely sane person, typically you'll do the morbid obese pivot. You see that a lot where people start to get to morbid. They're like, ooh, I feel horrible. And then they turn it around. That's more normal. People that go beyond, there's usually severe issues going on of some type.
Being healthy. If you look at what people looked like with what they were eating when they ate whole foods, 7,500 years ago, maybe even less. I think it really started after World War II when they learned how to prepackage foods with a bunch of preservatives to get at the front lines, and that changed the way that our processing of foods was done. And I think
it's actually more so in the 80s. That's when it really shifted, which I think that there were a lot of things going on at the same time. I think it's too complicated to pin it onto one thing. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of cultural trends that occurred around that time. I can list like an overreaction or an overcompensation to highly reductive problems that started in the 80s, I would say. That's from what I've looked at when I look at the history from a cultural perspective. And we started being extremely permissive towards overeating more and more and more as the years went on. I know that a lot of fat activists like to act like the 2000s were the most horrible thing ever, but they really weren't. If you look at like the 2000s versus the 40s, I'm sure it would have been totally different of what you were expected to eat, for example. So I'm just saying, I would say that process, I think it kind of started in the 80s for a lot of different reasons. It's not any one thing. Again, I've told you guys many times, there was a huge percentage of Gen X women specifically that had toxic ritualistic issues, and I think there was a lot going on, especially with that cohort. And I think that there, although a lot have gotten over it at this point, it had an impact on society. I think that was like the largest amount of people. Like, it's kind of like the incidence of it went up so high at that time, and then it kind of came back to regular after that. But I think that caused a ripple effect in society too, on a social and psychological level. But there are other factors as well. Again, I would just say, to me, on a psychological level, that is the biggest thing I see and what I think happened. Again, I'm going to say it again. A lot of Gen X women were activated. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I talked about this before. I had some of you Gen X women comment in the comments on that video where I talked about it, and you guys had really good perspectives on why it happened. But we need to acknowledge that, those Gen X women had kids, and they probably raised their kids in the issue, and it's just kind of been snowballing out of control, I think. As far as the toxic ritualistic world, it has kind of permeated a bit because of that. It's like more in industries, and it's spread a lot. Like, there's a lot to it, and it existed before then. Like, I don't want you guys to think I'm saying that. It's just, it like heavily expanded for some reason, which I don't really understand, but I think it does have ripple effects to this day, and we have to heal that as a society. It's almost like a societal wound, and we're trying to find a balance again. That's how I see it with this very specific piece of it. Now, there are other pieces of it. There's a lot of other pieces, right? So many. But to me, with especially what I talk about on this channel, that is what I see, is the impacts of that. I think there's just, I don't know. I don't want to sound too negative or anything, but to me, it seems like there was a lot of trauma going on back then. And I just don't know. I can't pin it on one thing, but I think that it was tough. I'm just going to be real. And I think that it caused a massive issue, and it's in no way Gen X women's fault. And again, I think most have gotten over it by this point, but still, like, throughout the years and stuff, it had an impact on society, and people believe certain things now. And I think it's just sad, and we need to heal that piece that's going on, and I hope we do. I really do, because I think collectively we need to let this go. That's how I feel about it. It's like, as a collective, we need to go back to reality when it comes to these issues. Like, I don't want to hear genetic this, genetic that in this conversation. I just don't. It's horrifying. It's just, oh gosh. I just hope that it can change. I really do.
I think since that point, it's become the commodization of the American people. I mean, we're essentially cattle being farmed for all of these different services to compound and rake us for money.
Okay, and I think that's a good time to bring in the rest of us.
Are you interested in mushrooms?
I'm so nervous. I think it's going to go bad. Hold on. Oh gosh, here we go.
I think that there's Like you were saying, there's so many disadvantages and ways of privilege that some people don't have access to, like transportation, healthy foods. If they struggle,
Transportation, I just don't even know. Like, what does that have to do with fatness? I think it's really hard for them to make these arguments. I'm going to say just immediately, it's hard for them to make these arguments because to be as big as this person is, it takes a certain amount of privilege. I'm going to say it. It takes money, cha-ching, to get that big. Because the amount of food versus how much you would eat to be of a normal weight, it is drastically higher. Drastically higher. So I don't know why they always go to that. Maybe you can kind of shift it around like weight loss, maybe. So like when you're actually trying to lose, then poverty can be a barrier. I agree with that. I think it can be stressful. It can add stress to a process. But, you know, a lot of times you got to do or die. And it's still not an excuse. It's not an excuse to stay morbidly obese because you're poor. It's just not. You need to find a way. And it will often be cheaper, actually, if you are downsizing from a super morbid or morbid level, where I think it can kind of even out or start to get a little bit pricier is when you're just class 1, then it can kind of shift a bit. But especially if you're very big, it's drastically cheaper. It's drastically cheaper. So I just, I can understand maybe being a bit frumpy. I know that's harsh. Not being able to have a 6-pack or something while you're totally impoverished. I totally understand that. That makes sense to me. It absolutely does. But when we're talking about being very big, no, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
with their mental health or physical health for any reason, they can't get access to the same kinds of.
It costs more to be this big. And I don't typically like to talk about the visual, but we have to. It costs more. So I just don't want to hear that. I just don't. I know it costs more. I've lived it. Just be honest. People, we need to normalize saying, I'm wasting all my money. Oh, okay. I'm just throwing my money in the trash to be this big. Okay. That's a problem. Yeah, it is a problem. But that's the thing. We have to acknowledge that as a society. What do? The opposite. Oh, she doesn't have money. She's that big because she's poor. No. She likely did not gain while being very, very poor. You can maintain, but you can typically maintain. But if you're too poor, then you can't. If you're very, very poor, then you cannot sustain that weight. Anyways, because you're unless if you can just sit and not move at all, or you have an extremely sedentary job or something, or a sedentary lifestyle. But typically if you're that poor, you have to kind of hustle a bit more, you have to work more, you have to figure things out. And again, it's hard to sustain. And sometimes you're not actually poor, you're poor because you're spending so much on food. I think that's a lot more common than people act like. I will always say supermorbid obesity is primarily an issue of the middle class, even lower middle class, but middle class. That's typically who's going to have these problems.
Foods to stay healthy or to stay thinner. Just for medical conditions, personally, I have POTS, which makes it hard for me to exercise, and also I need a lot of salt. And when I...
Okay. Well, being very big is not going to help. It's not. So you need to consider that. You can go slow. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. If we're talking about the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise wins for most people. For most. Doesn't mean for everybody. Some people do lose it fast and they're fine. I'm not talking to those people, obviously. But for most people, your average person that is very overweight, they're going to have to go slower. And if you have conditions and stuff, you need to go slower. You don't have to sprint. You don't have to do all that stuff to lose. You don't. but you should consider how your size is affecting conditions that you have.
I am thinner, it's harder for me to stay hydrated, so I pass out then. But all of those reasons, it's hard for me to believe that it is a choice.
Okay,
Did she just say when she's thinner, it makes her pass out more? Hold on, I need to hear that again.
Have POTS, which makes it hard for me to exercise, and also I need a lot of salt. And when I am thinner, it's harder for me to stay hydrated, so I pass out then.
She even laughed when she said it. She knew she was saying BS with that one. No, I think what it is that she's probably, if you're trying to lose weight with low carb, it can be really hard to retain water. It can. I struggled with that when I was keto. I'd have times where I was like guzzling salt water because I could not retain water at all. And so I could not like I had to break keto. I remember this one day where I had to. It was just very hot. I was in El Paso. I was sweating a lot. I was trying to drink water. I would just instantly go to the bathroom, drink water, instantly go to the bathroom. I could not retain water for the life of me. And I was like, I have to cut it. I have to have some carbs today. Like, I can't do this. So it's like, I wouldn't suggest that one for her. But there's no way in hell, if she was downsizing and she had, and this is just my opinion, maybe I'm just horrible and ignorant or whatever, but this is my opinion. There is no way in hell that if she were to have pasta or rice and then put a lot of salt on it, that she would have issues passing out. I think that would really help her retain water. She would massively retain water if she included starch and salt together, because insulin helps you retain salt. So, and starch is very insulinogenic. So for somebody like that, I'd be like, oh yeah, like if I need to retain water, I'm going to have a lot of starch, or as much as I could have within a deficit, and then I'm going to have a lot of salt on it. That should work. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Because that really, I would just swell like crazy and can help you retain water. So that's my opinion on that.
But all of those reasons, it's hard for me to believe that it is a choice.
Okay, Kate.
It is. You just have to work with yourself. You have to work with the issues you have and find a solution to what problem you're having. So I would say for her, do not do keto. It's not going to help you.
Can you kind of explain like what POTS is?
Yeah, POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And what that means is when your heart rate rises because your blood pools, and so then you pass out. But it's really important to stay super hydrated and have salt in your system to regulate your blood pressure.
I also have a medical condition called PCOS, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it makes...
So many of you that have this condition get so mad when people use it. And I welcome it. I welcome the anger. I do. I welcome it. It's another one of those things that's made worse by being fatter. So it's just, whenever I hear that, I'm like, but it's made worse by being fatter. It's infuriating.
Makes it difficult to lose weight as well. I'm not blaming me being a bigger gal over that by any means. Also, one thing I cannot control is how tall I am. I'm really short, and that's also a part of this body acceptance thing. It's like, that is something that I can change with only one thing, and that's wearing heels. And it's not the most ideal way to live, but like, this is the body that I was born in, and the body that I...
Your height is not similar to your weight. That is a crock. Sorry. Oh my gosh, these people are there. I probably should have been wearing the witch hat all along, to be honest. But I think I think it just triggered it. Like, I'm having a moment now. That was too much for me. I don't know. I'm like literally rolling my eyes in this.
I'm so accepting of other people's bodies, but it's like accepting my own without changing so much about it. It's really difficult.
I think it all comes
Then why are you on the body acceptance side if you're not accepting your body? I just don't get it.
down to whether or not we have free will. In today's society, we don't have access to knowledge. And so
I mean, you could go to a library. They exist, you know. I've gone to it before. I've even used the internet at the library. They're still there, as far as I know. You can go to a friend's house. You can go online if you do have the internet at home, which most people do. If you have access to the phone or to this video that you're watching, then you can use that to look up information as well. So there is going to be some knowledge there. There's plenty of calorie counting apps, which is the simplest way to look at it. I think other ways can be kind of overly complicated. And it's good to just take it piece by piece, day by day, year by year.
a lot of us don't realize the foods that we're eating is bad. Whether or not you are eating healthy or you're eating like ramen noodles every day, we truly don't know what's in our foods. Unless you have that ability to break through that barrier of this is me.
Well, there are ingredient lists on everything, so you can look. It's not, if you look for the answers, you will find them. I'll put it to you that way. If you're wanting to be blind to them, then you will be blind to them. It's one of those things when it comes to this issue. I'm not saying that she is personally, obviously not. She's more in shape. But I think that, it's that reaching. I tell you guys all the time, it's like I'm going to run in front of a moving vehicle to prevent a fat person from taking accountability. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. I talked about it as an American thing, and then a lot of you guys commented, and you were like, it's just a Western world thing, period. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I live here. And we need to stop. This doesn't help. It's not helping.
Which a lot of people don't, especially in poverty. Like, we don't have access to therapy, stuff like that. Like, trauma can make a huge barrier between self-awareness.
Okay, but if we don't have access to therapy, we don't give up and die. That's not the answer. So, again, I understand it can be hard. If you are in a toxic ritualistic cycle, one of the hardest things is awareness. That took me so long to be aware. I was in the issue severely for 5 years before I was made aware, before I became aware that I had it. And again, binge, it needs to be known more. That is something that we can work to change as a culture. It needs to be something that people understand more, that people hear about more, so that it can kind of colloquially be out there and people can be aware of it. That's what I'm trying to do. It's what a lot of people try to do, right? So that we can be made aware of these things. You just have to, you stop and then you immediately know why you're doing it and you work through it and you take it piece by piece. The best way you can tell if you're like, I don't know why I do this, you stop. If you stop, you'll know within an instant. And then you work at it and work at it and work at it. I understand it can be tricky with therapy, but especially if you have very severe issues that need to be dealt with, but we don't just give up and die. I don't support that. I don't. I really, really don't. And when it comes to the toxic ritualistic, you can stop on your own. You can. If it comes to these other very significant, if you've had something extremely traumatic happen to you, or if there's a lot of stuff like that that's very severe, then you may need to find access to therapy to function, normally, if it's that bad, especially, which, of course, which just look for ways. There's got to be, where there's a will, there's a way. I'll put it to you that way. I know it can be hard, but you got to see what you have access to. You got to see what you can do. See if there's anything charitable or anything like that. I would just look. Just try. You just try. Try your best and try to get help. So, yeah, that's what I would say if it's that bad. If it's toxic ritualistic, you got stuff going on. If it's not that bad, like if you're more like a mid-sized princess level, for those of you guys that are on my channel, if it's not as severe, you can stop. You just need to be aware of the cycle, and you need to stop obsessing with how you look. That will help. Those are like some baselines. But yeah, if you have severe trauma, it's tough, but you're going to be struggling typically in more than one way. Like, it's not going to just be your weight. It's going to be a lot of issues if you're in that category.
Awareness.
So regardless, I would try to figure out a way to get help. That's what I would try to do in that situation.
And blaming the world. And so a lot of people just blame the world and they can't accept accountability.
There's no shortage
That's
of
true.
advice out there.
I agree with that.
Everywhere you...
Very much so.
Could literally be impossible for them.
If I have somebody that...
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say awareness is tough. If somebody is totally delusional, then I agree with her. That is hard. But if the information is out there, if it is not affirmed, so if somebody that has this issue tells you, gosh, I'm fat because of my genetics, and you say, no, that's not true. Actually, obesity is not genetic at all. That helps. Even if it pisses the person off, it helps, because it is a very fragile illusion. And that's something that I push for a lot, is us to not affirm. It's better to say nothing than it is to say, yeah, you're right, it is genetic. That's horrible. Do not do that. Just be quiet. Like, honestly, do not encourage somebody or reinforce somebody on the toxic ritualistic. And that happens far too often. It's too common for that to happen. And it's not, I don't think the person doing that is evil or whatever. It's just, you're either trying to get the person off your back, or you're trying to just be nice to the person, but it doesn't help. It's not nice to reaffirm to somebody their own delusions or lies. That isn't a nice thing to do. So, because the nicest thing is to help a person wake up or realize, just by being you. Just being like, yeah, that isn't true, actually. No, it is true. It's not. You could do a little debate over it if you want, or you could just say, it isn't true. And you just leave it at that. Really? Because it's not.
I have to rely on to buy all my food and supplies, and at that point, you don't really have a choice. It's not like an 8-year-old can petition for emancipation.
No. If you're young, it's totally different. If you're a child, it's totally different. I always talk about if you're an adult. If you're a child, it's tough. It is what it is, kind of. It's a tough thing. But as an adult, you can fix this.
I mean, he's kind of stuck under the guidance and values of his parents.
Yeah, that's true.
As an adult, I guess it's different, but yeah, definitely as young children and even the teenagers, it's not as much of a choice.
What else do you think makes it not a...
And when you're a teen, there's more choices, but you're not usually like the smartest person in the world as a teen. I mean, no shade on anybody who's really young. I'm just saying, like, you're not experienced or you don't know certain things. So it can definitely be tough, and especially if you don't have support, like if you're trying to get together, you have toxic ritualistic reinforcement from your parents. That's a very tough situation for a teenager to deal with. But 18 plus, honey, an adult, it's you. It's all you.
A choice for them.
Gosh, I think of like when I'm like in front of really good food, and just being like a foodie in general, like trying different restaurants. Food is how I bond with people too. Like it's in our society. You go to a restaurant.
You'll have to find other ways. I know that's hard. That part is kind of annoying. Like I agree with that. It is tough, but you can still connect, and yeah. There are other ways to connect. I think sometimes it can be a little bit lazy to just depend on that. I don't think it's inherently bad. It's just you need to find other ways to connect with others.
You eat as much food until you're so stuffed you can't eat anymore.
Okay,
and
well that isn't good. You don't have to do that all the time.
I eat almost every day, and it feels like I don't have the free will anymore. It freaking controls me.
Okay, well, you might have a toxic ritualistic issue in that case, but again, you have to fight that. That does not just go away. It's not like a cute kumbaya moment. I told you guys, it's Pennywise. You have to fight Pennywise. You have to resist the fear. You have to make fun of Pennywise and say, Pennywise, you're so stupid. Oh my gosh, this is so dumb. How can I even think this? This is the dumbest thing in the world. You have to not affirm it within yourself because it is dumb. When you see yourself and you're staring at the mirror and you're looking at yourself and like 40 minutes have gone by and you've been staring at yourself, you need to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. What the hell am I doing? I am dumb for doing this. I'm telling you, you don't affirm it. This is really dumb. Wow, this was really stupid. I wasted all this time. This is really stupid. Get used to that, using that. This is really dumb. I had moments last autumn, towards September-ish of 2024, and I was losing a lot at the time. I tend to de-swell as the weather cools down a bit, and I was having a hard time with the mirror. I really was. I talked about it. It was right around the time that I launched Britishy Georgie, which, oh my gosh, I think it's been like a year now. I'm bringing it back. I'm going to post a picture today. I'm going to post a picture. Britishy Georgie is in my heart forever. But anyways, you have to like I was looking in the mirror and I was like starting to spiral over it a bit. And then I imagined like the balloon and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Pennywise. This is the clown. The clown is here. Like, this is fucking stupid. This is dumb. And you just kind of like, you don't listen. You just don't. That's what brat was all about, you guys, on this channel. You're bratty when it comes to this. I do think people that are toxically ritualistic, they'll typically have to go in that brat lane more because you have to not listen sometimes to your own toxic ritualistic bullshit. You don't listen. You break the rules. You don't listen to it. I'm not listening to you, Pennywise. I'm not listening. You're wrong. You have to have that brat energy and be like, no, I'm not listening to the bullshit. I'm not listening. I'm popping that red balloon. Every time I see it, I'm popping it. I'm like, no, pop, no.
And to get up and have that same energy to go to the gym is really hard. Where I'm like, the easy thing is to do.
You start slow with activity. You build up over time. I think so much of the toxic ritualistic mindset, it has to do with black and white thinking, all or nothing. And it's often the gray. The gray is where we break through. So you go out, you walk 10 minutes, then you come in, you slowly build. And then you just become more active, and then you get more used to it, and your body can handle more, and then you just go and you just kind of like slowly come out of it. And you can think about it as a longer term process and give your brain time to adjust to different things. Like, part of my relief today is I don't have to like jump into another social category anymore. Like, I've made it. I'm average, I'm thin, I'm just there, you know? So even if I lose, I'll just get in shape. But I'm never going to be fat. You know, I'm not going to shift. I'm not going to be mid-size again. I'm not going to be fat. I'm not going to be hugely fat. It's like these categories, they're difficult to shift through socially. And it's okay to take it slow. It's okay to adjust. That's what I've had to do. I've had to adjust through every single shift. And I'm so relieved. I don't really have to adjust anymore. You know, yes, I think things could be different if I was super in shape or whatever. Maybe I get more attention or something. But it's not like I'm jumping a total category. It's just different. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll keep reporting to you guys. But I'm just saying, I find relief in that.
The, eating until I can't no more. And maybe that does make it a choice in a way.
It is a choice, but again, it does take some awareness of the toxic ritualistic, which I don't know if she's aware. And that is a tragedy. That's heartbreaking. You know, it is, but you also resist it. You resist it. So it's hard. And the more resistant you are, the more likely it'll kill you. I'm going to put it to you that way. That's the truth. And for me, oh honey, I was the most resistant of all. I'm a very stubborn person. I always tell my Astro Girly Pops, my Astro Girlies and Boilies, I am a Scorpio rising Leo, double Leo. I am a stubborn person. That's Scorpio. Oh, honey. Whew. Oh, my goodness. Very strong in me. And it's like, combined with the Leo, which is also stubborn, it's like, honey, I am not going to change if you tell me what to do. I'm not doing it. And it's like, and I rode the ride all the way to the end. And it's like, I'm telling you guys. Now, luckily, the inner Scorpio, it could like shift directions. And I could just like denounce the toxic ritualistic and just be like, I'm never fucking doing it again. And I just like never did it again. Basically, it's literally been 5 years since I've done it. And that same stubbornness, I was able to use it against the DIS order. So that is something I would suggest. If you are a very stubborn person, you can use it against the problem and be like, I'm never doing this again. And it helped me. So if you are super stubborn like me, that can help too. You can have a complete resistance to the issue. You can shift it. And that can be life-saving. And be like, I'm not ever doing this again. And that's what I did. That's what saved me. So that same stubbornness that almost killed me, it also saved me. It's weird. But you got to work with what you got. And I think that that's hard. I don't think we teach people that enough in society. Work with what you have. Work with your body the way it is. Work with the personality you have. Work with who you are. Work with what you got. Work with who's around you in any way you can, because you're worth it. Your life is worth it. It is worth it. Your quality of life is worth it. It is worth it. You are an undertaking. It is worth that undertaking to become healthy. And you work with what you have. Always. And it's a good skill to have. It's good to have that mindset. We work with what we have. You'd be shocked at what you can create if you look at what you actually have and you're not sitting here distracted by what you don't have. If you look at what you have, that can save you. So again, that same stubborn oh, that stubborn quality I've got. That's just like, oh, you know, and I know like so many people that do not like me, or that I've had enemies in my past and they can't stand it. I have been called to see you next Tuesday more times than you guys would probably even know. But that same energy is save me, because you use what you got. So that same stubbornness, that bitch, that bitchiness that I've got, as much as it almost killed me, you could flip it and then it saved me. Because it's like, I'm not going to die. Like, it's like that stubbornness. I used to say that when I was doing the activism last year. I'd be like, I'm going to live longer so I can be a thorn in your side even more. And I can annoy you and annoy you and annoy you forever and ever. But it was like, no. Because it's like, that's what worked. You know, if you got that Scorpio in you, you use it, honey. Scorpio wants to live. I'm just saying, I do think a lot of people that have that Scorpio energy, they're at risk for toxic ritualistic issues because it's so obsessive. But you use it. It wants to live. You want to live. You're a survivor. Period. Okay, I'm getting too in the weeds. Anyways, let's go. We're going to go till 10 minutes, or until this prompt is over, I guess.
I feel like I don't have the free will to make that choice.
That makes sense. Do you think a lot more people
You feel like it, but you do.
Doing that like that too?
100%. Like, it's something that I can control. If I'm gonna choose a salad, you bet I'm gonna put a bunch of dressing on it to make it taste better. Or the burger just looks so good, like here, I absolutely am going to eat that compared to the salad. I don't feel like I have control over it, that it does not feel like a choice. It does also feel good. Like, the endorphins hit me and I'm just like, freaking dopamine.
See, it kills me because I feel like she's probably interested in fixing the issue. I'm like, I wish I could talk to her. Because I'm like, honey, if you want out, you can get out. Dead ass. That's literally why I made this channel, why I did it the way I did. I was like, I want you to know, if you want out, you can get out. You know, I'm not necessarily the one to convince somebody to get out, but I am one that's like, if you want to get out, you absolutely can. And I will tell you that every single day, because I needed to hear that so bad. So bad in the issue. And I will tell you, you can get out. It can be hard, it can be long, it can take a while, but you can get out, and that time is going to pass anyways.
I guess I could be addicted to crack.
Oh my gosh.
So if my food is my addiction, which it is, I've wrote long.
Be very careful with that, baby. So much of the toxic ritualistic is identity based, and so identifying as that, it really reinforces it. Just be very careful.
Notes in my phone about how bad my food addiction is. Like, it doesn't feel like a choice. Like, but there's no place to go. Like, food.
It is. It's always a choice.
Food rehab, right? It's not treated the same.
There should be some things. It needs to be treated differently because it is different. We need more help with this. I hope that it can reform, because a lot of fat acceptance is taking over treatment, which is horrifying. And I need to cover that. I don't know what I'm doing. I really need to cover that stuff. But we're going to have to this autumn for sure.
It's just, you're fat and that's your choice. Get up, you lazy thing.
It's
Terrible.
the easiest coping mechanism.
Right.
You know, like I remember having a bad...
I don't think it's the easiest because it's really unpleasant a lot of the time. Like, it's just you don't think about the bad when it's your coping mechanism, because it's like, this is my security. I don't want to think about the pain. It's kind of like being in a toxic relationship. You don't want to think about the bad to stay in it. It's the same thing with the toxic ritualistic. You ignore the bad and you only think of the good. I try to always bring up the negatives. It costs a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It wastes a lot of time to do it. It's a constant thing. You feel too full very often. You're in pain a lot of the time. It hurts. When you get that big, then you have a whole cascade of issues that it's going to take too long to even list. But even the issue itself, it's unpleasant. It's gross. It affects your digestion badly. You have to go to the bathroom a lot, and it's not pleasant. I'll put it to you that way. It's a lot. It causes IBS and stuff. Like, it causes a lot of problems. So it's not pleasant, and it's expensive. And then you have to buy clothes if you're gaining. And then it's like, it's not fun a lot of the time. Like, a lot of the time you're feeling embarrassed, you're feeling anxious about it, you're feeling guilty about it, you're feeling tortured over it. It's like you're torturing yourself constantly. And it's like, it's not easy. I think we try to gaslight ourselves into thinking it's easy because we only will think about how hard it is to fix the issue or how hard it is to normalize our weight. But you don't think about how hard it is to actually maintain it. It's tough. It is also hard. And we don't talk about that enough. We just don't. Because when you have this problem, a lot of the time, you know, I feel for her. I can feel the people pleaserness coming off of her. I think it's very common to be a people pleaser with this problem. And she wants to go be a part of like a get together. And then she probably feels anxious when she's at the get together. So then she overeats. Or then she keeps eating and eating and eating, and it's too much. And then she starts to feel sick. And that's where you're getting into that binge because of the anxiety. And it's like, ugh. Like, it kills me to hear about, like, to hear that, because that's what I see when she says that. And it's like, oh my God, that's so sad. And it's like, you can just be anxious, or you'll find like you don't have to be. You know, it's so hard. That part is really hard. And it breaks my heart to hear stuff like that, because that's what I see when she's saying that. It's like I go to these events and I'm nervous, or I don't feel good enough, or I feel this kind of way. And so then I get anxious, and then I start to eat due to the anxiety. That's what's happening. And it's like, oh, you know? But it's like, I can't fix that for you. Other people can't fix that for you. You have to fix it. If other people could, they'd try. You know, they would, more than likely. But we have to stop hating ourselves. I don't know. We just do. It's bad. It's not healthy.
Bad day, like almost weekly, the thing was I would go when it was a bad day, and I would hit a Taco John's and grab, you know, a big giant grilled stuffed burrito and the pound of potato olays, a bunch of extra seasoning, you know, because that was like the, okay.
You want to distract. It's a distraction.
You know, like the same feeling people describe of like having the cigarette when they've been craving it kind of thing.
It's a stress relief too, but you can get a similar stress relief from going to the gym. So that's more about like misapplying these things or overly relying on certain things. To combat stress, like you need to have other coping mechanisms for stress.
Of like just that release of like, okay, I had, it just set that.
The gym can become a similar release if you go long enough.
Calm across your whole body kind of thing.
For us,
I feel a lot calmer after going to the gym.
That disagreed?
Yeah.
Do you guys find that sometimes it's a lack of discipline more so than a choice, which can sometimes enable you into making further bad choices? I find myself with those similar struggles on things outside of the gym. How do you guys feel about that?
There's a fine line between discipline and free will, and it all just comes down onto your neural pathways and whether or not you have the capability to rewire your brain to be like, okay, I can eat this. You know, you can have the Taco Bell, but you have to balance it out with something. Too much of anything is an addiction. If you're constantly eating healthy food, once you get a bite of, Thanksgiving turkey, you're going to overindulge. And I've experienced that myself.
Specifically with going to the gym, like that is a discipline that I highly...
I think it's interesting. I think where I agree with her is awareness is huge. So being aware, particularly of your triggers, is a big deal. I think a lot of us, we have had specific trigger foods. Like for me, it was these Takis knockoffs. But so I just abstain because it has the damn seed oils in it, and I just can't because of hypo and all that stuff. I had way too many chips. I've had enough chips for a lifetime. I'm just done. Honestly, I'm not having it with those damn oils. I'm done. Again, that's my Scorpio side. I'm just like, I'm fucking over it. I'm just over it. That's just me. But I'm just saying, like, I did like this video where I was using Takis specifically because it was like a trigger food, and I literally like put them in my mouth and everything. And I didn't care, so it's not really the physical thing. It's like more of a habituation. It's like a habit. It's like a brain pathway created that is often reinforced or constantly reinforced. It's like, think of the brain as like, it's like Pavlov or whatever. I think is what that psychologist, I think it was a psychologist, his study with the dog, where it's like they feed the dogs and they ring the bell and then they ring the bell and then they salivate. It's very much like that on a physical level. So it's like you can feel like it's a physical addiction, but it's not. It's like an association. And when that is not taken a part of for a long time, it just goes away. It's like, because I think people don't understand how repetitive this is. And maybe it's just as repetitive in addiction. Maybe that could be true. But it's so repetitive. It's something that people do so many times over so many days, over so many years. And that's when it becomes so deeply rooted and so deeply ingrained. And you do have to break that, or you have to stop that and disrupt it. And that is challenging, but it is possible, and it is a choice to do it. You break it apart piece by piece. You start at something like, I don't even know. If I have a bad day, that means I have to be ing. No. There are other ways of dealing with a bad day. And that can be really tough for people to think about. But it's because it's like, every time I've had a bad day, then I do this. Every time I've had a bad day, then I do that. And that's a habit. It's a habituation over time. And you have to disrupt it so you don't. You break it like a system. It's like a metronome. It's like it's going and you have to be like, no. That's hard for people to do, but it's possible. And if you think of it that way, then it's like, okay. And then when it comes up again, you stop it again. It's like, no. Then you let go, and then it goes, no. And then eventually it won't do it. But every time it does it, you stop it. Every time. For my astro girlies and boilies, that's more of an aqua thing. That's an Aquarius thing. I like to say that stuff. I'm really cheesy. By the way, I am talking astrology on my TikTok if you guys want more of that. But anyways, let's continue.
Really admire in people like you. Truly. I tell myself I don't have the time. I'm doing other things. I'm working. I don't think I would have the dedication that it takes. Going to the gym is a choice. And you guys, I'm glad that you do, but it's also like not my thing. I've tried it before, and I don't have the discipline to stay consistent with it. So I think that's a good point, Gabe.
Sure. Yeah, I think for me it comes down to discipline. I've been through the points in time in my life where, I've been what you would consider 1% as far as physical condition, and I know that at this point it is a discipline thing. Last year, my wife and I did a 90-day challenge, and I lost 50 pounds in 90 days. So I know if I make the choice to do the things, good things happen. So for me, I believe it is a discipline thing, but that it can very well be my privilege. It's not.
It's not always privilege. It's also just maybe you're healthier. it's not as clear when you have like insulin issues and stuff like that. Then it's not as like direct, but it's still, you can still do it. Maybe you go diagonal rather than straight on, but you can still get there. And like I said, we don't give up and die on this channel. That's not the vibes, okay? It's you walk it, you go for it. You crab walk your way, you sideways walk. It doesn't matter. You get there. You do it. And that's it. That's it.
You know, I have the means to be able to do it if I want to or choose not to. And like you said, food is a social thing.
Everybody does.
For me, I
like to say that just because it makes people mad, but it's true.
You know, just today, I had an all-you-can-eat buffet after a work event. I have at least 3 work meals every single week that are all-you-can-eat buffets, you know, because that's our culture. You know, like I'm constantly working with people. It's just part of my job to ensuring other people having meals and enjoying themselves. And food is also like my art form. Like I have a commercial kitchen in my home because I just love to.
If it's that tough, then you might have to change if you can't make it work. You know, if I was on here, my whole channel was rooted in the toxic ritualistic. I'm doing, you know, if I'm doing mukbangs constantly, or mukbangs, I don't know how to pronounce it. If I'm doing that constantly and I'm eating like 8,000 calories every day on YouTube, I might have to change my job. If I was a BOPO influencer and my whole thing is like buying clothes as a size 5X, and that, I might have to change it. I might have to change it. You know, I hated my job in 2020. I was a call center person. I did technical support. I absolutely hated the job. I don't think I could have. I could not have lost the weight if I stayed at that job. I just hated it that much. You know, I don't regret it because it helped me, I think, with what I do now on YouTube, because some of you guys used to be like, oh my gosh, like you're so patient. How can you handle talking about these horrible fat acceptance videos because they act so like Karen-ish? But it's literally because of my call center job. I was used to it. So that's why I could do it. So I don't regret it, but I'm just saying I could not have lost doing that job. There's no fucking way. There's no way. I hated it so much. If you absolutely hate your job, you're gonna have an issue. That's just some advice based on my experience. But if your job is tied up in the toxic ritualistic, or if it runs too close, you gotta change it because it's not good. It just isn't good.
Experiment with food, you know, like making all kinds of homemade things. You know, the pandemic was an awesome time because we got to make so many homemade things. You know, I just love to deal with food, and so I've always had a problem with weight.
Okay, I think that's horrible. It was not an awesome time, but I think you can see how he leaned into that coping mechanism during a very stressful time. And again, to me, that was very toxic ritualistic. The way he just did that, I was like, whoa. So yeah, I'm just saying it's there if you guys look. And I just hope you guys know it on this channel. I hope you can see it. I hope you can recognize it. And, you know, when you see it.
Because.
So the crave.
1 second.
Yeah.
I just think back to like access and like how you were talking about how sometimes there are folks that are privileged and can access those kinds of things, but
okay, guys, I'm going to have to actually stop it here because it's going a little long. I talk too much, but I have a lot to say, so I don't think I can do it prompt by prompt. So we're going to just continue later. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. One of my favorite times of the year is coming up. I love Scorpio season. I do. It's coming. I can feel it. I'm happy. I'm happy it's coming. But anyways, I will see you guys later.